Goodbye.
Okay.
Okay, see you later.
Let's see, who else has come in here? Ginny
You
Harris.
got 3 pages at least.
Who's 868122? That's a mysterious one. Very eager. Let's see.
That's the password.
Oh, did somebody enter that as their name?
Oh, I might have. Did I do that?
Could have been me.
Oh,
At one point, I tried.
In the room with us.
I
Oh,
did
right.
more pages. It's nice to see all you guys.
Yeah, see, they're just pages and pages.
little page.
Only way to be recognized. I don't care to do that. Just raise your voice.
So I'm gonna say, let's see, Diane Neal. There's Danny. Danny, our newlywed. Man, you got it in right under the wire, didn't you, man? That's awesome. So good. Oh, Laurel Kimball.
We've got a camera.
Both the Neils. Lisa Eisenberg over there.
There you are.
Okay. The Closters. Who's over here?
I
Heather
know.
Harold.
There's no picture.
Oh, okay.
Look at this. All we had to do was tell you you could talk to the rector and you all turn up. My goodness. We have been playing this wrong all these months.
Hi, Jim. Can you
500.
hear me?
Okay. Was that you?
There's Laura.
It's Elsa. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. I thought maybe I hadn't pushed a button or something.
You're all good.
Erica, let's talk real quickly before Jim starts about some protocols.
Yes, please.
So if everybody can put yourself on mute, that's that little microphone, and click it so it goes red. Of course,
Corner.
when you want to speak, you can just come back on, but that eliminates all background noise. Does anybody have a problem with that?
Okay, are we on?
That's it. One easy thing.
The other thing you can do, does everybody see at the bottom, there's just over from mute, there's a little box called chat. And if you have a question, hey, Sally Seekins and John Farley, if you have a question, I think it's going to be easiest to sequence questions.
Well, I got on, but it was a heck of a battle.
There are
She
30
was all over the place.
There are 30 participants on the kids' coffee hour, so I hope you all are waiting.
Oh, we will do. Hey, Sarah, good job.
Yeah, there was a question. Yeah, everybody, you don't have to turn off your cameras unless you want to at your home.
There's the Coppins. You guys are all doing amazing. So just to get started, and we'll say this again as we keep filling up here. If you have a question, Jim will have some kind of opening remarks. And then if you have a question, if you could type it into the chat, and then I'll take the questions and feed them to Jim in order, just so that we can kind of manage the volume and not talking over each other, and then somebody doesn't get missed. And maybe you'll see somebody else is already asking the question that you have. So does that work for everyone? Just give me a thumbs up if that works for you. You can type into the chat. Do you see chat down at the bottom?
Oh, we didn't even need all that.
There we go.
So cool. Well, there's a Lions. So nice. All right. There's Barb Husak, the Burtons. Hello. Hey, Heather Vandenbrühl and the Rayborns. This is so nice. Hey, there's Ellie Izzo. We could all give a big thumbs up and a clap to Ellie for a great presentation this week. I heard over 130 people attended. Thank you, Ellie.
My privilege. It's the mental health. She was in.
Thank you, Allie. Heard great things.
Oh,
It was my privilege to do it, and it was a very lively group. It was very interactive, and it was such a blessing to be able to exchange that knowledge to help people to lean into their spirituality rather than anxiety.
Megan, we need to turn that off while I'm doing this Rector's update thing. So you find something else to do. Maybe read for an hour or something.
If you're just coming in.
For another hour. You watched like 3 hours of TV, so you can do it.
If you're just coming in, I encourage you to please mute yourself down in the lower left-hand corner. And
That may depend on what kind of equipment you have, Erica.
What's that?
Well, you said it's down the bottom left-hand corner. Mine's in the top right. So
I suppose.
Yes.
You may be able to mute everybody. The host should be able to mute everybody as well. If that helps, I don't know.
Yeah, thanks. All right.
Jim, very still.
Let's see.
When do we get to see Jim? I want to see his virtual haircut.
Here I am, baby. I guess if I speak, it should put me on your screen, right?
So that's another thing that you can do. There should be, I don't know how to explain it. So there's
speaker view.
Yeah, there's gallery view or speaker view. And if you're on a computer, it's likely up in the upper right-hand corner. If you're on a phone, I'm not sure where it is. And if you click, it'll show the person who is speaking.
Anybody else have any questions about how to
all the
get
folks.
Here. The other coffee hour.
So people are still popping in, which is fantastic. Look at that, 104.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it.
There's
Yeah.
Wick. Hey, how you doing, Wick?
Not bad. It was pretty bumpy trying to get, I went to the original site and then we had to get the numbers, the new set of code numbers. Meanwhile, the Zoom has been kicking me right out and then I have to try to go back and re-enter in. It's been a wild ride.
Well, bless you for getting here, brother.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
In this picture.
Through many trials, we enter the kingdom of God.
Jeez, well, makes me wonder whether Satan's on the sideline picking up the crumbs.
I can't get the bishop off.
Hey, Jerry, good to see you.
He said, "Hi, Jerry. Say hi to Wick."
Oh, hi, Wick.
Dan and Jerry, nice to.
His sidekick is here too.
Yeah, we're both here.
Good,
Wonderful.
So, Erica, you ready for us to start?
Give it just one more minute.
One more
Oh,
minute?
goodness, we're at 107. I'm just so thrilled to see so many faces. Y'all are just
It's good to see you. It is good to see
filling up my heart.
Yeah.
Well, you told me to exit out, so I did. Back on the.
It's good.
Here, just send so you can see you. There. That's him. No, here.
Well, show yourself. So.
They know I'm here.
So if you're just coming in, I will encourage you to go and click mute for yourself. That helps us prevent background noise while Reverend Jim is chatting with us. And then if you have a question for Jim during this time, if you could go to the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer, and there's a button for chat, and you can type in your question there. And I'll sort of be moderating the questions so that Jim can respond to as many as possible. And you'll also kind of be able to see as things go along about if other people have same questions as you do. So let's see. Do we feel pretty good? I think we're looking pretty good. So let's see, I've only got 5. Oh, all right, well, there are a few There are a few people still coming over from the other one, but I am recording this, Jim. So if you want to get started, I think that's just fine. And then we can direct them for kind of your early comments to be able to catch up if they want. So does that sound okay?
Sounds great. All right.
All right, it's all yours.
So, welcome everyone. I am very grateful to be here with you. And recently in one of the announcements, I commented, it's nice to be seen. And now it's nice to get to see you. So thanks for joining, and appreciate your patience. We keep learning. And as Erica said, we have these multiple meetings and all kinds of numbers tossed around. And so I apologize that in some places we didn't get the right numbers. So but thanks for your patience. The intention of this is to make it available for any question or concern or any comment or feedback that you might have. So there's 3 topics I want to make an opening comment about, but then we'll throw it open for all questions and concerns. And you know, I don't know, Eric, I guess we can keep this going all day if we want to, right? Okay. All right, great. So I want to say a little bit about when we might regather. I want to say a little bit about the Welcoming the Neighborhood Growth Initiative and Capital Campaign. And then I want to say a little bit about how we're doing in our parish finances and budget. And when it comes to that, I'll pass the ball to our senior warden, Jeff Bell, to make some comments about that. So with regard to when we can regather, the bishop, as many of you have heard, the bishop convened a task force, and the task force has completed their work. And the bishop has given 2 reports. One is a video that we put on our website already, didn't we, Erica? It's on our Facebook page and it's on our website. It's a lovely 8-minute video from the bishop that I commend to all of you. And then basically that same presentation is in written form. But Erica, have we linked that on our website, the written document?
Yes, and both are on our website, and I believe we linked to it at the end of the video today, the worship video.
Okay.
And the written document is far more detailed than her spoken report.
Right, right. And it is a very detailed report, and I do commend it to you. I have it here. I just want to mention some highlights.
And the audio.
So the bishop has said that tentatively she's offering May 31st, that would be 2 weeks from today, for when we can begin to regather. But the guidelines for when we can regather suggest that it probably won't occur as early as May 31st. And the primary guideline is that we have to be, our county has to be 14 days of decreased cases, decreased diagnosed cases. So I've noticed the last 4 days, I think the cases have gone down. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get the next 2 weeks of decreased cases and we'll be able to regather. And then I'll say more about that if we do regather, what that would mean. I want to be optimistic, and I want to be realistic as we begin to come out of some of our restrictions and open up business and activity. It seems likely that diagnosed cases will go up, not down. And I think we're also getting more testing is becoming available, so it's more likely that we'll discover people with the virus. And so I just don't want to lay out a carrot that we're going to start regathering in 2 weeks. I want us to be optimistic about that. Then the report gives a lot more detail about this that I don't want to go into. Later, I'm happy to answer questions, but I'd rather commend the report to all of us. Then with regard to regathering, it's very restricted and very limited. So no groups larger than 50. Everybody wearing masks. If we decided to celebrate the Holy Eucharist, we would do that with only bread. We would only have communion of one kind, not two kinds. We would receive it standing, not kneeling. And there's more particular guidelines for being very cautious about how we do that. No congregational singing. And in fact, and again, it's one of the reasons to watch the bishop's video, because singing is very near and dear to her and her spirituality. She comments that she began her church life when she was 5 years old singing, and she prays by singing is her innate practice. And so not to have singing is a great loss to her, but it's her thought that we probably won't be able to sing in church for at least 18 months because it's one of the most, one of the ways the virus spreads most is through singing. So just not we will have that for a good while. The bishop has offered, so if once we regather, she's calling that phase 2. And as I've said, there's lots of restrictions around it. I've mentioned some already. No faith formation for children and youth, no gatherings larger than 10 people except in worship, no small group faith formation things larger than 10 people. And then she's proposed a phase 2.5, which loosens some of that a bit. The expanding the size of gatherings to up to 100 people, perhaps some congregational singing and some choral singing, perhaps some in-person Sunday school and youth formation, perhaps non-emergency pastoral care visits from clergy, perhaps coffee hour and social hour. In the beginning of phase 2, no coffee hour either, no social hour, etc. So I just lay all that out for you and commend you to the document that you can find on our website. Let me just pause there and ask, are there any questions about that?
So we've had a couple oh, maybe a Zoom hymn sing. Love that thought, guys. That's brilliant. So there's a question about the dashboard that the bishop references, and that's on the ADHS website, the Department of Health Services of Arizona. And so that's where she's looking, and it shows kind of a little chart. And so you can kind of dig around in there. I think she also puts the links with her video maybe on the website, so we can make sure that the links to that are included on our site as well. We have a question about how would communion of any kind work with a mask? You want to try and imagine that, Jim?
I'm happy for you to do that.
Very carefully. We'll be very creative. So, but we'll figure that out when it comes. Let's see. There's a question about continuing online worship and Zoom as we go forward, even into phase 2 until there's a vaccine. Do you want to comment on that, Jim?
Yes, actually I do. The bishop urges us to continue online ministry, which we would do for sure, because lots of folks won't be able to come, especially people that are in the vulnerable categories. And so we would definitely continue online ministry during all this. And by the way, I want to make another comment about this. I've said this in several of my updates. I wish that I could be with you one-on-one, each one, and we could look each other in the eyes and we could say, let's embrace the opportunity that we have with this. I appreciated Erica's comment in her sermon to acknowledge the losses and the feeling of loss, and then to let it go. If you have to let it go 10 times a day, I appreciate you saying that, Erica. It comes back, and it comes back. Let it go and move on and embrace what we can do. Let's don't play a waiting game. Let's be the church we can be now. And in one or more of my updates previously, I likened this to the church of the first 250 years in which there was lots of persecution. And because of that threat, the church went underground. And in a similar way, we're kind of underground now, and let's embrace it and let's thrive. And you guys, I have to tell you that watching us, it's been one of the most heartwarming experiences of my priesthood to see how important our community is to us, how much we value it, and how much it matters to us. And so for us to continue, I realize Zoom is not optimal, but I don't know about you, but when I get to see you, you ignite the spirit in me. Being with you in this way encourages me. And I was in a conversation in which I was asked about this, about how the spirit works over the internet. And yeah, my response to that is, we don't send the spirit over the internet because the spirit doesn't need to be sent. Just get you for a minute for that to land. The spirit is. There's no place the spirit is absent. And when we're together, even in this way, we call out that presence of the spirit within one another. We don't send it to each other, but there is a kind of transmission because we call it out of one another. And so that's what I want us to embrace. All the ways that we light up one another with the presence of the Spirit within us, and we encourage one another. And again, I loved in Erica's sermon going back to Finley. We can just quote Finley every Sunday. Why not, right? We sustain one another in that. Our presence encourages and sustains and reminds one another, inspires us. It's life-giving. We taste the bread of life in our community, even when we're together this way. We drink of the living waters, even when we're together this way.
Amen.
And so for us to keep nurturing the ways we can be together, keep coming to online worship, keep participating in the Zoom meetings, continue to do the mission ministry. I love it that we're scheduling another blood bank. We're going to do a monthly food drive. We're making masks. We continue to make sandwiches for the East Valley Men's Center, and we continue to be open to all the ways that we can serve and love and care for a hurting world. However, we can do that, and to the degree that we can be together in it, we encourage and inspire one another. And then I want to say one more thing about this. I don't often do this in my teaching and preaching, but I have from time to time. I want to invite us now more than ever, don't be one of those who finds yourself critiquing what we're doing. Now, by the way, we all do it. It's so natural to us. We do that. I want to invite you not to do that. I want to invite you, come to whatever we're coming to, not critiquing, but open to the presence of the Spirit and to being moved and ministered to. And if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times at St. Barnabas. When people say, oh, this or that spoke to me, and my response is, it's because your heart was prepared. If you have an open, prepared heart, Jesus will speak to you, the Holy Spirit, your God will touch you and minister to you. And that's how we want to be. And because nothing we do is going to be of the same quality as what we're accustomed to. We just can't do that. And by the way, we need to be honest to each other. And I need to say to you, this online ministry is an extremely competitive marketplace. If we view it that way, if we're just one of many church spirituality offerings in the marketplace, we can't compete. So we have to see that's not what we're about. That we're not playing that game. What we are being is St. Barnabas. We're being the St. Barnabas we can be. And I want to encourage you, don't let that be taken away from you by falling into the becoming a critic and critiquing it. And again, let me tell you, I'm as vulnerable as you are to doing that. So I just want to encourage us that we are St. Barnabas. Let's continue to be St. Barnabas in the ways we can be, and inspire and encourage each other, live deep into this. We'll discover things we never realized before. We will thrive in a different way, in new ways, and continue to bear the fruit of being disciples of Jesus. So that's sermon number 1. We'll see how many you get in this.
All right, so there's some questions about worship. Maybe I'll kind of see about putting, I'll try and put a couple together. As we open up the church, could we offer more options for worship services such as morning prayer or compline, which can be led by the laity? Any comment on that?
Yes. So let me, by the way, in response to that question, let me say more. The bishop's guidelines include a worksheet for congregations, and it is a huge undertaking. So Erica is going to be putting together our own task force, and we'll be inviting people to join us and help us. We'll be thinking about lots of options. So just morning prayer is available to us, Eucharist is available to us, Compline's available to us, noonday prayers, which Robert has done, all that's available to us. So we'll be exploring lots of things. I had originally thought when the bishop said limit gatherings to 50 people, I thought, well, okay, we'll just schedule 4 services back to back, but you have to thoroughly clean everything in between. So we probably can't do that. So we just have a lot of work to do to put together a plan for our parish. And by the way, also, we can't do anything until the bishop approves our plan. So we have to put a plan together, and again, there's a lot of detail in it, and then get the bishop's approval. But we'll be looking at various ways of being together in worship. And Erica, I'm sorry to do this to you, but email Erica all your suggestions because we need them. We want your creative thought, and that doesn't mean we can do it, but we want to hear from you what you're thinking. Okay.
Absolutely. So some questions about singing. Does the sanctuary allow for recorded music if we can't have live singing? Or can we pull previous recordings of our choir and replay them in the church or via outside speakers if we do outdoor services?
Let's see, Erica, I heard like 3 different questions in there. Can you start with the first one about music?
Yeah, do we allow for recorded music if we can't sing live?
I don't know what that means. Oh, can we play a recording of somebody?
Right. Can we play recorded music?
Yes, we can. However, there's a caveat to that. If we record our choir, there are, the word fails me, but you have to get permissions. What's the word I want?
License. Yeah.
There's licenses and copyright things you have to play recordings of. I'm sorry, my vocabulary is.
I got you. We have those licenses, so we would probably be able to do that, and we got those licenses, particularly as we went online in March. So
okay,
we'll have some flexibility there.
Okay.
Probably more in regard to what we have available. So And that kind of goes along with, can we pull previous recordings of our choir and replay them? And I think we absolutely can.
Right.
So.
Good. Okay.
There's questions about the Eucharist. A couple saying, I miss the Eucharist. Is there any chance of loosening the restrictions on sanctifying the Eucharist online? Can you talk about that, Jim?
I've heard no more conversation about consecrating online. So the bishop originally said she asked us not to do that, and I've not heard any conversation since then. So it's a significant theological question, and something that the church leadership is going to have to grapple with. So I'm not aware that there's been any change in that.
Okay, I have a lovely shout out here. Please commend Kate and Sarah and Robert on their incredible outreach to the children of St. Barnabas. They've been amazing for my kids. Happy to pass that along if they're not here already. A question here, Jim. Why not have in-person services for those who are comfortable with that and continue the online services who are not yet comfortable? I think that goes back to the bishop's requirements, right?
Yes. Bishop Redall's never said this to me, but I'm confident she would if it came up. Bishop Smith told me I could hide behind him anytime I wanted to. So I'm hiding behind the bishop on this. The bishop said no, and that's the end of the conversation.
She did actually say to the task force that she understands that to be her role. She knows that the buck stops with her.
Okay. And by the way, I concur with that. So without going into a discussion about it, I think all the data suggests to us that it's not just about ourselves, it's about jeopardizing other people. And so.
Absolutely. There is a comment about how about simultaneous worship when we reopen in Hutton Hall, the music center, the chapel, the sanctuary. May I comment on that?
Please do.
I think that's going to be a possibility for us. However, we have to think about access to restrooms and not overlapping so much in hallways, restrooms, and having to kind of keep ourselves socially distant, even though we have all our friends on campus and all of that. So it's really going to be about how do we maintain the safety, even if we can worship in multiple spaces.
Right. So again, in the bishop's guidelines, there's more about this, but if you start to think for a minute, all the comings and goings of people, passing each other in the hallways and the bathrooms, in and out of whatever building you're in, how you manage all of that, everybody has to wear a mask. We will have some people that don't want to wear masks, and how do we have a conversation with them when they show up and don't want to wear a mask, and or do they take their mask off during the service? I mean, it's just a lot to manage. So, and that's all good. It's all good. It's just we have to put our hand to the plow to put together all the implications of that in our proposal. So, and I think at least the sanctuary and the parish hall offer a simultaneous opportunity for us that I'd sure like to see us take advantage of. So just to add to the 50 limit, it's either 50 or 25% of the capacity of the room.
Whichever is less.
Whichever is less.
Right.
So for example, the music center, on the one hand, it's an available space, but it's not the total legal seating capacity, and that's relatively small. So would it add enough value to try to do it in there simultaneously? And I'm not sure, but I think the parish hall definitely affords an opportunity. So.
Let's see, there's a question about, just a lovely comment. Is anyone else finding the daily meditations on YouTube as valuable as I am? They're real stress busters for me. Thank you for that. Could we pre-package the holy bread with blessings in special containers and then deliver it to our members in time for a Zoom church service? I do love the creativity.
The bishop asked us not to do that. That's another thing the bishop said not to do, is to send out pre-consecrated elements and then do a service together via Zoom. So, or via live online. So.
There's a question about a cleaning task force. I think that's going to be a real possibility.
We actually are underway with that, so you'll be hearing more. We've just started putting that together. So,
let's see. I don't. Yes, couldn't we have staggered dismissals at multiple venues? Yes, that's probably probably possible as we think about it.
Well, it's probably very likely that we would do that. So Erica, let's move on. Let's and we can come back to this, but let's make sure we get all three topics. I want to be sure and do that, okay?
Great, you go ahead.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the Welcoming the Neighborhood initiative. So I trust you all realize we suspended the capital campaign, and we've continued to receive commitments to the campaign, and you can continue to do that. And again, thank you very much. So we're continuing to take pledges, but the formal campaign itself, we suspended. And we sort of suspended the project, but the town of Paradise Valley also suspended it for us. I'm looking at David Getz. So David, at any point you want to dive in here, feel free to do that. But we continue to have a very good partnership with 5 Star and a good conversation with the town of Paradise Valley. Our project continues to be front and center in our life, and the town continues to work with us on it. We have another meeting with the town this coming week, and we're hopeful that at that point we'll gain approval. And then the leadership of the church, especially the core team that the vestry delegated to prioritize the whole Welcome in the Neighborhood initiative for us, we continue to be in conversation, and we're very hopeful that we can do something during this time. So I don't want to get ahead of things and say a whole lot more about that, but we have $3.3 million in commitments. I mean, you know, and we have close to $600,000 already received. So it's an optimal time for us to do some of that Welcoming the Neighborhood initiative. And I need you to know I'm very excited about it, and I think it'll be wonderful for us to get started on that. And again, the parish leadership is conversing about that, and as those conversations mature, we'll be sure and let you know, and hopefully before too long we will get started on some of the initiative. Now, part 2 of that is it's my hope that sometime in the fall we can potentially re-engage the campaign itself. We can evaluate kind of where we are and the overall initiative itself and the priorities around that, along with a careful, thoughtful evaluation of the finances of the operating budget of the church, which I'm going to ask Jeff to speak to you momentarily. But in the fall, begin continuing our commitment to transparency and begin some conversations about where we are with those things and our vision for the future. Nothing has changed for me with regard to our dream and the robustness of the life of St. Barnabas. No doubt this pandemic has changed the world for us. And no doubt it's slowed us down, and it's just made everything different. But our mission and our vision and the vitality of our congregation has not changed. That has not changed. And so my hope is that at some point in the fall, we can begin conversations about our dream and about how we would phase, not not phase into regathering as the bishop would say, but how we would continue to phase into the dream and the vision that the Spirit has given us and who we are as St. Barnabas, and continue to move forward in that. I'm very hopeful that at some point in the fall, and if not the fall, shortly thereafter, we could open up those conversations. So any questions about that? David, do you have any comments about that, generally speaking?
No, Jim, I think you said it very well. The only thing I'd say is if just for those who are interested, we hope that our final hearing with the Town of Paradise Valley's Planning Commission, that will be this Tuesday night. And there are, I have alerted a number of St. Barnabans how to participate in the Zoom meeting or dial in. I'll make sure that the church has that information. But if people are interested, hopefully we'll get approval this Tuesday night for the landscape project and all the external renovations we're planning.
Wonderful, David. Thank you. Yeah, what time is that again?
That's it. The meeting technically starts at 6. We're the second agenda item, and we'll probably be up for discussion about 6:30 on Tuesday night.
So when is that again?
6:30, Jim.
Tuesday night.
The 19th.
6:30, Tuesday night. There's 100 people in this round table, and so maybe there'll be 100 St. Barnabans on that.
The more the merrier. The more people that participate and show the support that this community has for our project, the better.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Okay. Any questions about what we commented on there?
Looks good. Just lots of thanks. Oh, can you advise where to send an email in support of the project?
I cannot. David, can you?
Sure, I will. I'll get that information so it's on the church website. But if you have a pad and paper, send either a letter or an email to George Burton, B-U-R-T-O-N, and his email is gburton, all one word, at paradisevalleyaz.org from memory. George is the senior planner. He's handling our application, and we're still in a public comment period, so any expressions of support are welcome and appreciated.
Can you repeat that one more time, that email address, David?
Yeah, from memory, G Burton, G-B-U-R-T-O-N, at paradisevalleyaz.org. I believe that's the URL for the town's website.
Is the
we'll
fact
send that out in an email, right, Erica? We'll send it out in an email
yeah.
on our website. So.
We can definitely do that. Does
you,
the fact that you have that memorized indicate anything about your involvement, David? Have you used that a few times?
George and I are good friends by now.
Bless you.
He's been a good supporter of us. So, any other questions? Okay. So, Jeff Bell, could you just make a comment, and that'll put you on my screen? I think that works if you say anything.
Well, hello, St. Barnabas.
There you are. All right. Thank you. So, Jeff and I and the treasurer and the staff of the church have been working on our budget and our parish finances for this year and on out into the future. So I think it's good for our senior warden to report to us about that. And so I turn it over to Jeff, ask you to do that, please.
I'd be happy to. And it's good to be with everybody this morning. A couple items that you might be interested in. First, you probably have read over the last month that the federal government is injecting a lot of stimulus money into the economy. And a big piece of that was over $500 million to support and help prop up small businesses. And a program was executed last month called the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, if you've read anything about this. And that program was specifically designed to help small businesses kind of weather the storm in the short term. Fortunately, they had the wisdom and foresight to allow churches and houses of worship to apply for these funds, because there isn't a church in this country that isn't subject to being negatively impacted by the COVID crisis. So your church got right in there very quickly and submitted an application in the first wave of this program. And we were heavily supported by a local bank called Bank 34, which happens to be Michael Salazar's employer. Michael is our acting director of music. And through those connections, we qualified for one of these loans in the amount of $240,000, okay? And we have that cash in the bank now. That's good news. The even better news is that the majority of that money is going to convert to a grant and actually be forgiven, because over about an 8-week period of time, we are allowed to apply for what's called loan forgiveness. And it's based on the commitment to keep everybody employed that was employed prior to the crisis. And it's going to cover all of our payroll for an 8-week period of time, plus all of our utilities. And if we had rent, it would cover that too, but we don't have any rent, so we don't need to worry about that. And so this has really been a blessing for us and a big piece of financial assistance for the church. Now, in terms of our overall finances, as Jim said, Linda Kilmer and Jim and I have been working closely on the current budget and thinking forward about our finances. And I think I would report to you today that the church's finances are very stable, okay? And if we look at our actual results through April, our income versus our budget is exceeding budget by about $120,000 so far in the first 4 months of the year. And our expenses are about $40,000 less than we had budgeted. And so we've got a modest surplus right now, kind of in the teeth of this storm. And our expenses are down in areas that you might expect, right? Program support and music and the maintenance of the campus. All those areas we're spending less than what we had planned because the campus is not open. There are some areas that we're spending more than we had planned in communications and in information technology and in other online support systems. And so those areas we're investing more than what we had planned. So, but all in all, we're in a very stable place right now in the short term. I think we all sense that there is a lot of uncertainty in front of us. No one really knows where the economy is going. No one knows where this virus is going. And that just creates a lot of economic instability, right, for the instability for the country. But what we're trying to do as an organization is just be ready for that, right? And so we are reviewing our expenses very closely and looking for opportunities to continue to reduce expenses where it makes sense, but continue to fund the areas of the church that are just vitally important to us. Also that PPP loan forgiveness piece is a big deal because it's going to basically wipe out a lot of our expenses that we normally would have. And so those are all important things for us because we need to look at making sure that we continue to have a very responsible financial plan, that we're living within our means, that we're being prudent with the treasures that have been provided to the church. And I can commit to you that we're very focused on doing all of that. I guess in my role as senior warden, if you were to ask, well, what can we do? I would say just continue to support your church financially if you're able to, right? And if that happens and we continue to do the right things from a service and support standpoint, I really feel like we're going to be okay. You know, we have a very strong, solid financial base as a church, and your leadership is committed to making sure that it stays that way. I'd also just like to give a shout out while I've got airtime here that, you know, your staff at this church just continues to go above and beyond and do wonderful things in supporting the community. And there's so many things going on behind the scenes that are being talked about now, but even beyond that. The other thing that's happening is that your vestry is fully engaged on the church's mission and meeting on a regular basis and continuing to conduct the business of the church as you would expect us to do. So that's just kind of a snapshot on where we are. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions about the church's finances or the PPP loan or anything related to that.
There was one question, Jeff.
Yeah.
Is the income up because of the money from the government or due to people continuing to pay pledges and giving?
Yeah, no, it's not up because of that. In fact, the way we're going to treat that PPP loan is that it is a credit against our expenses, right? We're not really recording it as income, but rather a credit against our expenses. You know, we're never really quite sure why our income is different ways. I mean, we know what our pledge expectations are, what our pledge budget is, how much people have paid against that, and plate offerings, we budget for that. I mean, there seems to be a number of parishioners that have paid their entire 2020 pledge in advance. And I mean, what a blessing that is. And I'm sure that has something to do with
Are you kidding?
No, I'm sure that has something to do with our income being up versus budget. You know, we kind of came into April with really healthy donations, and since these results are through April, I think it reflects a little bit of that. You know, but we're concerned about the future and whether that's going to continue, because there's going to be a lot of stress on the economy, we believe, and we'll see what happens. It's a highly individual thing, but right now we're in pretty good shape.
There's also a question about how is our endowment doing on the open markets? Are the assets in stable vehicles?
Yeah, I can't really comment on the vehicles themselves. I can tell you that you know, we have a board that oversees the endowment funds and the foundation. We have excellent financial advice. Certainly the value of that has come down, along with just about every investment portfolio that's out there, and we've been subjected to that as well. But it's all very secure, and we're working with our financial advisors to, you know, continue to modify those strategies so that as the market recovers, we're able to recover as well. Jim, anything else you would add to that?
Yes, I think John Kilmer is on this call. John, if you're there, do you want to say anything about the foundation? John is the chair of our foundation board.
Yeah, I think Jeff has answered that fairly clearly, but we invest in the foundation assets on a long-term basis, and we invest in very high-grade securities. And although we've taken somewhat of a hit because of the overall market, it still is still in very good shape. It's a very, what I would call a very resilient portfolio. And there is no need for us to do anything at this point. I think the best thing anybody can do in a market that is volatile as it is today is just to stay pat, in which we are doing. We have already made the distributions for this year's distributions for 2020 or early in January, in anticipation of the market being so high. And we are making provisions to make sure our distributions for 2021 are protected at this point.
I would just say the distributions, John, you might want to explain, are that the operating budget of the church benefits from a distribution every year from the interest gained on the accounts. And that's the distribution that I think.
Yeah, interest and gains.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Very helpful.
Any other questions?
Looks like that's about it. on that. Thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
Jim?
Any questions about any other aspect of our life?
Yeah, may I interrupt? This is Larry Bullen speaking,
Hey, Larry.
and I noticed that Val's name is still listed. The terrible condition of our world resulted in our not bringing remains to be deposited in your beautiful memorial garden
I know.
on April 18. And Erica and I had arranged everything. And we still love you all. And eventually we will come and finish our work. And the Lord has certainly blessed us with being affiliated with such a wonderful group of great Christian people. Thank you.
Oh,
Oh, Larry, bless you. I'm so sorry for your loss, brother. We're with you. We're with you.
And we can't wait to bring her home to our garden. Much love to you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Reverend Jim?
I share a little something I thought I found inspiring in today's news. Right? Yesterday, the Buckeye School District held graduations for their 3 high schools, but they couldn't walk across any stage. They worked with the Phoenix International Raceway. The graduates were able to drive in cars 1 lap around the raceway, and as their car crossed the finish line, their names were announced over the loudspeaker. I thought that was just so wonderful. That must have been such a great thing for them. It's inspiring. Creativity.
Well, Lindsay, you know, our local community theater where I live in Fountain Hills is going to have drive-in theater productions.
Wow.
I don't know quite how it's all going to work yet, but the board's in discussion on that.
Cool. We're working with Kate to get to celebrate our St. Barnabas graduates in the next couple weeks here, working on getting something for announcements time in church, just like we would usually do. So stay tuned to worship to get to celebrate St. Barnabas youth soon too.
All right.
Does that mean that we could actually do a car caravan through the parking lot and you guys could do the holy water blessing on us?
Well, I don't know about that, Wick, but mark your calendars to drive through the parking lot on the 30th for our food drive with lots of stuff in your trunk.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Anything else for Jim today? Any other questions? You can throw them into the chat or
concerns, anything anybody's concerned about or just wants to know about, anything? All right. Well, thank you again for joining in this little roundtable, and especially thank you for your faithful participation in our beloved St. Barnabas. It's because of you that it is such a vital, thriving, fruit-bearing church. And so the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be among you and remain with you always. Amen. Amen. Thanks again for joining us.
Before you go, did we like this format? It was nice to be with Jim, yes?
Yes.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yes.
yes. So maybe like monthly, would that be a good thing? Every 6 weeks, just to touch base, hear what the latest is?
Yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Great, great. We will do that. And again, any feedback or input, just shoot it over via email to us, okay? All right.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you
Eric.
so much.
Thanks for managing.
Thank you.
You.
I love you all.
Thank you.
Serve the Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
God.
Bless you all.
Thanks be to God.
Love you all. Love you all. Take good
Hallelujah.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thank
you.
Hey, Gail.
Hey,
Bye for
thank
now.
you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.